Dust billowed high behind the stagecoach wheels, sunlight catching the haze so it glowed like smoke from some far-off fire. Leather harness creaked, hooves struck hard, and the whip cracked sharp across the driver's calloused hand. Inside, the woman sat still, gloved fingers resting on her lap, eyes steady on the horizon where the ranch waited like a lone scar on the land. The coach jolted down the last rut of road, the driver cursing as one wheel struck stone. Her hat dipped forward, shadowing her face, but her posture never broke. The driver muttered to himself, stealing a glance. Too fine a face for the desert. Too calm for a bride headed toward a man like him. The ranch came into view. Fences bent from years of wind, boards gray and splintered. A water pump leaned with rust. Cattle lowed somewhere out of sight. Beyond the corral, the house stood crooked against the vast sky. Porch sagging, shutters half broken, roof patched in tin. On the porch, the rancher waited. He didn't move when the coach drew near. Hat brim pulled low, shoulders stiff, boots planted. His silence seemed carved from the same stone as the mesas behind him. The stagecoach shuddered to a halt. Horses blew hard, tossing sweat. The driver tipped his hat toward the porch. "Your lady," he said, voice hoarse. She stepped down, skirts brushing dust, boots firm on the dry earth. Not dainty, not trembling. She met the rancher's gaze and held it. No flinch, no nervous flutter. He took her measure in silence. Sun-cracked skin, eyes ringed in tired shadows, beard rough and uneven. He had expected plainness to match his own weathered life. But this was a storm walking into his yard. The driver cleared his throat, muttering about the miles yet to cover. Coins exchanged. The whip cracked again. Dust swallowed the stage as it rolled away, leaving nothing but the groan of leather straps fading down the trail. Wind picked up, dry and sharp, tugging at her hat brim. She lifted her hand, steadying it. He noticed her fingers, not soft, but strong, nails short, as if shaped by work, not vanity. "Ma'am," he said at last, voice low, worn thin. "Sir," she answered, and the sound of it carried a weight that didn't belong to a stranger. He nodded toward the porch. She followed, steps firm, not faltering in the dirt ruts. Boards creaked beneath them as they stopped at the door. Inside smelled of dust, leather, and old wood smoke. Sparse furniture, a table scarred by knives, 2 chairs, a stove blackened from years of fire. Nothing soft, nothing welcoming. She glanced around once, then set her small trunk down with a thud. Dust stirred up in the beam of light through a cracked window. "You'll find it rough here," he said, half warning, half confession. "I've known rough," she replied. Silence stretched, heavy, before the wind pushed against the shutters with a hollow groan. From the porch, coyotes yipped faint in the canyon distance. He watched her eyes shift toward the sound, not with fear, but with a curious calm, like someone listening for a signal. At last, she pulled off her gloves. Hands bare now, knuckles marked with faint scars, her grip still firm when she extended it toward him. He hesitated, then met it. Her palm pressed into his, not gentle, not fragile, but solid. A handshake of equals. Their eyes held again, and something unspoken passed in that grip, something that unsettled him more than the emptiness of his house ever had. In town, whispers had already begun. The saloon keeper leaned on his counter and muttered, "Too fine for the likes of him. Trouble rides in dresses like that." The blacksmith swore he'd seen her face somewhere, though he couldn't place where. And the drunk on the corner, with eyes blurred by whiskey, spat into the dust and swore she carried the same fire he'd once seen in Dodge, when a woman outshot a man before he touched leather. But on the ranch, none of those whispers mattered yet. Only the silence between 2 strangers hung heavy. He released her hand. She drew her trunk toward the small room beyond the stove, shoulders squared as though she had lived there her whole life. The rancher stood still, listening to the wind scrape sand across the boards. Something in his chest shifted, uneasy, restless. He had asked for an ordinary woman, one to share the silence, to ease the long nights. What had arrived was no ordinary woman at all. And though he would not say it aloud, he already felt it. The desert had changed the moment she stepped down from that stage. The lantern swung low in the barn, shadows climbing up the beams as the woman drove a pitchfork deep into straw. The rancher paused at the doorway, watching. She moved with the sureness of someone long practiced, muscles steady, no wasted motion. The mare nickered soft, pressing its muzzle toward her. She brushed its flank, whispering something he couldn't hear, voice low and certain. When she turned, the rifle leaned against the stall. Not his rifle, hers. Worn smooth at the stock, metal oiled, grip darkened by years of handling. She caught his eye, but said nothing, just lifted the lantern higher, throwing his face in sharp relief. "You sleepin' light?" he asked. "Always," she said. The night outside carried a sound, faint hooves across stone. Both froze. The wind paused too, leaving only the creak of wood and the far call of an owl. He stepped out into the yard, boots sinking into dust, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. Figures moved up there, black against the moonlit sky. Riders sitting still as carved posts, watching. She came to stand beside him, rifle now in her hands. "Neighbors of yours?" she asked. "No neighbors ride out this far." The riders didn't move. Then, as the wind rose again, they turned, slow and deliberate, and vanished beyond the rocks. He let out a breath he hadn't known he held. She didn't. Back inside, he found her at the table, cleaning the rifle, motions efficient, exact. She worked the cloth down the barrel like she'd done it 1,000 nights. The lamplight glowed against her face, throwing sharp lines across her cheekbones. "You keep that for snakes," he said flat, repeating her earlier words. Her eyes lifted. "Steady. Plenty of snakes out here." He said nothing more, but the unease coiled tight in his gut. At dawn, they rode into town. Dust from their horses rolled ahead of them, settling into the cracks of the main street. Men lingered outside the saloon, hats tipped low, watching as she dismounted. Her boots struck wood, and for a moment, the room inside fell quieter. The barkeep leaned on the counter, eyes narrowing. He muttered to the blacksmith beside him, "Ain't no mail-order bride I ever seen look like that." The blacksmith squinted, hands scratching his beard. "I swear I've seen her face before. Somewhere down south, maybe. Just can't place it." Whispers carried, cards stilled on tables. She ordered supplies with calm certainty. Flour, coffee, ammunition. Not once did she falter under the stairs. The rancher noticed the way her hand brushed the butt of her pistol when a drunk stumbled near. A gesture quick as breath, and the man retreated. Outside, the drunk slumped against a post, eyes glassy. He spat dust, grinning crooked. "She ain't no wife. I seen her. Years back. Quicker than any man. Quicker in death." Nobody answered him, but nobody laughed him off either. That night, the wind rattled the shutters hard. The rancher woke to silence, broken by a soft click, her chambering around in the dark. He sat up, reaching for his boots. "Riders again," she whispered, voice low but sharp. He stepped onto the porch. The desert stretched wide, silvered by moonlight. And there they were, half hidden at the edge of the canyon. 5, maybe 6 riders, horses shifting restlessly. She stood at his shoulder, rifle raised, steady as stone. The riders didn't advance. One lifted an arm, pointing. Then they turned, shadows melting into night. He lowered his head, jaw tight. "Who are they after?" Her silence answered. The fire cracked inside, throwing sparks against black iron. She sat close to it, gaze locked on the flames. The scars on her knuckles glowed pale in the light. He studied her in the silence, words gathering heavy in his throat. "You ain't who you said." Her eyes lifted, calm but unyielding. "I never said who I was." Outside, coyotes cried into the darkness, and the land seemed to hold its breath. Morning brought no peace. Cattle scattered along the fence line, restless from the smell of strangers. She moved among them with practiced ease, rope steady in her hands, her voice carrying sharp commands that quieted even the skittish calf. He watched from the gate, unease heavy as iron. She didn't move like someone learning ranch work. She moved like someone who'd done harder things under harder suns. When she caught him staring, she didn't soften. "They'll be back," she said, wiping sweat from her brow. "Men don't watch that close unless they mean to ride in." The wind shifted, carrying the dry tang of smoke from some camp too near. He felt the truth in her words, though dread pressed down on him like the desert heat. By nightfall, the ridge was empty again, but the silence was heavier than before, as though every star in the black sky watched and waited. He sat on the porch, whiskey burning down his throat, while she cleaned the rifle once more. And in his chest, a question echoed louder than the coyotes or the wind. Who had he really brought into his home? Flames licked along the fence line, crackling sharp in the night wind. Cattle bawled wild, eyes rolling, hides glinting red in the firelight. Hooves thundered as the herd broke, scattering into the dark. The rancher ran through smoke, choking, trying to beat down sparks with his hat. Gunfire split the night. One bullet struck the pump handle, sending shards of iron spinning. Another chewed into the porch post, splinters biting his cheek. He dropped low, heart pounding. She stood in the yard already, rifle to her shoulder, calm as dawn. The crack of her shot sent one rider tumbling from his saddle. The horse bolted free, reins trailing like a ghost. Voices shouted from the ridge. Torches flared, painting cruel faces in orange light. The leader rode forward, black coat whipping, eyes locked on her. His voice carried clear across the yard. "Lay down your gun, Clara Dane." The rancher froze. The name cut through him like a blade. He turned to her. She didn't move, didn't blink. Only her jaw tightened. The leader's grin widened. "I knew I'd find you hiding in some hole. Thought you could bury yourself under a man's name. Thought wrong." The rancher's breath came short, dust and smoke burning his lungs. Clara, not the name he knew, not the woman he thought he'd sent for. Another shot rang. She dropped one of the torches from a rider's hand, plunging him into shadow. The men cursed, horses wheeling. "They won't stop," the rancher shouted, coughing hard. "They never do," she answered, voice flat as steel. Bullets tore into the corral rails. Boards cracked, cattle screamed. The night roared with fire and gunpowder. The rancher grabbed his shotgun from the wall, hands shaking. He stumbled into the yard, standing at her side. Smoke stung his eyes, but he leveled the barrel anyway. The outlaw leader laughed, deep and cruel. "That old fool won't save you, Clara. Hand her over, and maybe you live to see sunrise." The rancher's voice broke rough. "She stays." A hush fell, even with fire snapping and horses pawing the earth. Her eyes flicked toward him, a flash of surprise cutting through her hard composure. Then the leader's grin twisted. So the loner's grown a spine. His arm lifted high, signaling the charge. The riders spurred down the slope, torches blazing, gunfire rattling. Clara dropped to one knee, rifle steady, every shot placed with deadly precision. Men toppled, horses screamed. She moved without hesitation, faster than the rancher could load, faster than anyone should. He fired both barrels, dropped one, grabbed another, the sound of explosions ringing his ears. She was lightning beside him, hair flying loose, eyes locked, face carved with grim purpose. The fire pressed closer. Smoke rolled across the yard, thick as storm clouds. Shadows danced, riders circling, shouting curses. One outlaw broke through, rushing the porch. Clara swung her revolver, shot clean through his chest, spun, and dropped another behind him. Her hands moved too quick, too sure. The rancher stared, stunned, even as his ears rang from his own shots. Between volleys, he shouted over the roar. "Who are you?" Her teeth flashed in the firelight, not in a smile, but something fiercer. "I was a widow once. Then I became something else." They made sure of it. The words hung heavy as thunder. The leader's voice cut through the chaos. "You can't run, Clara Dane. We'll burn you out same as Dodge, same as El Paso. We'll drag you back to finish what you started." She rose from cover, rifle raised high, her voice sharp and clear as a bell. "You'll never drag me anywhere again." Her shot cracked, striking the torch from his hand. Sparks flew as it fell, dying in the dirt. For a moment, the outlaws faltered. Then, with a roar, they pressed closer, circling, driving the ranch to its knees. The rancher stood, chest heaving, smoke filling his lungs. For years, he had lived hollow, too tired to fight for anything. Now, with fire and death closing in, He found himself unwilling to yield. He stepped forward, shotgun ready, planting his boots in the dirt beside her. "Then we fight." She glanced once at him, eyes lit fierce in the fire's glow. No words, only a nod. The circle tightened. Horses screamed, rifles flashed, fire devoured the fence line. And in that furnace of smoke and steel, the loner rancher and the woman called Clara Dane braced themselves for the storm to break. Dawn split the horizon in blood-red light, smoke curling low over the ranch. The air stank of powder and charred wood. Cattle bawled far off, their cries swallowed by the stillness before another storm. The riders ringed the yard, weary but hungry for the kill. Their leader sat tall in the saddle, black coat flapping in the rising wind, revolver glinting at his side. His voice cut sharp through the smoke. "Clara Dane, step forward, and I'll spare the man. Stay hid, and I'll burn this place to ash around you." She stood in the open already, dust streaked across her face, rifle cradled loose in her arms. The rancher at her side, shotgun gripped tight, jaws set like stone. "You want me," she called, her voice steady, carrying over the ruined corral. "Then ride down and take me yourself." The outlaw leader grinned, teeth flashing. He swung off his horse, spurs ringing against the dirt. His men pulled back, circling wide. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crack of cooling timbers and the low moan of wind through the canyon. The rancher shifted, but she touched his arm once, firm, commanding. "This is mine," she said, eyes never leaving the man in black. The leader stepped closer, boots crunching over shattered boards. "Thought you'd vanish forever, Clara. But legends have a way of rising back." Her grip tightened on the rifle, then she lowered it, let it fall into the dust. Her hand brushed her hip, slow, deliberate. His eyes caught it, his grin widening. "You still think you can outdraw me? After all these years?" Her reply was a whisper, but it carried. "I don't think. I know." The world narrowed. Wind stilled. Even the horses seemed to hold breath. Her hand hovered loose, fingers twitching at the edge of leather. His thumb eased the strap of his holster, movements smooth, practiced. Then steel flashed. 2 shots cracked near as one. Smoke curled from her revolver, her stance unshaken. His arm jerked, revolver spinning from his grasp, blood blooming dark across his chest. He staggered, eyes wide, mouth working soundless. She stepped forward, revolver steady, the sun at her back burning red in the rising dust. His knees buckled. He hit the dirt hard, the silence broken only by his last, ragged breath. The circle of riders wavered. Fear flickered in their eyes. Some turned their mounts, spurring hard, scattering across the ridge. A few fired wild, shots thudding into earth, but her return fire dropped them clean. The rancher's shotgun thundered once, the blast rolling like judgment across the canyon. The rest fled, hooves drumming, leaving only smoke and the dead. Silence fell heavy. The wind returned, carrying ash and grit, tugging loose boards with hollow groans. She stood still, revolver smoking at her side, chest heaving slow. The rancher stepped toward her, face lined with dust and wonder. His voice cracked. "You were never too beautiful for this land. You were made for it." Her eyes met his, fierce and weary all at once. For the first time, her hand trembled, just slightly, as she holstered the weapon. Together they stood in the wreckage, the sun climbing higher, painting the ranch in new light. What was broken could be built again. What was lost could find root in the hard soil. Years later, old voices carried the tale in saloons and camps. They told of the loner rancher, a man thought hollow, who stood beside a woman too strong for the world to forget. They told of Clara Dane, the widow-turned-gunfighter, who faced down a gang and their black-coated leader in the dawn fire of the frontier. And when the story ended, the storyteller always leaned back, eyes shining in the lamplight, and said, "Some folks ride the desert looking for peace. Some ride for vengeance. But once in a rare while, 2 ride together and change the land itself." That's what happened the day Clara Dane walked off the stagecoach, and the loner rancher took her hand.